Hey everyone, I don't want to waste too much time covering this particular article in this video. Matter of fact, I'll try to keep this video as short as possible, but I just want to use it once again as a reference point to push back against some of the rhetoric that'll be espoused in some subsequent article in regards to the rising food costs in this country, which is all a direct reflection of central planning, monetary policy, and inflation. It's not that bread or vegetables or meat has somehow become more expensive to produce. Once again, it all comes down to the massive amounts of intervention by big government, central planning, and crony corporations in the economy. But when you hear some of these media pundits or personalities, whether it's on TV, radio, or on the internet, talking about how Canadians are changing their eating habits, well, yeah, that might be the case. But is it because they're voluntarily choosing to do so based on their own tastes or consumption habits? No. I know I can speak personally about my own economic situation, and when I'm not doing well economically, or when prices of the things that I consume or eat increase substantially, well, I have to look elsewhere, or I have to find other ways to stay within the confines of my budget. Doesn't mean I don't want to eat steak or a lot of those really expensive vegetables. It just means that I can't do it because my bottom line prevents it. So like I say, when you hear some of these media personalities, or at some point in time going forward, though, they start talking about, oh, Canadians are going towards moving different things and they're becoming more greener, more environmental friendly. The question I want you to ask yourself is, are they doing it because they voluntarily chose to do so? Or are they doing it because government is metaphorically putting a gun to their head or forcing them to do so? And if they're doing it because of force or necessity, well, at the very least, don't try to promote it based on anything other than an acknowledgement that they're being forced to do so. Pretending or suggesting that Canadians have somehow just all of a sudden decided at some point in time in their life, just everybody in Canada, or at least a substantial portion of Canadians, everyone just decided to start eating much cheaper sources of food, which that's another thing when you're talking about eating, like humans have to eat. At the very least, this is the part where it drives me nuts. Really? You want to start messing with people's ability to feed themselves? It's kind of one of those things humans need to survive. But big government hacks and central planners, like I say, they don't care how many people are hurt. And think about it. Who the hell is going to be suffering the most under rising price increases in our food? It's the poor. It's always the poor. In Atlantic Canada, you got a lot of poor people. Well, basically all of the people that don't work for government. There is some wealth in Atlantic Canada, but most of that is in the hands of those who work for government. The rest are basically the have-nots who have to suffer and change their eating habits to appease their elitist overlords. Headline out of CTV News, Atlantic News, Atlantic Canadians changing eating habits due to rising food costs. It's been reported by Nick Moore, December 29th, 2019. Halifax, many people are looking to change their eating habits in 2020, and one big reason is because of the rising cost of food. According to a year-end report by Dalhousie University, people are definitely feeling the pinch. We actually were shocked that 87% of Canadians, they feel the pressure. They feel they are falling behind, says Dalhousie University professor Sylvain Charbois. The survey from Dalhousie University and Angus Reid polling also found that 53% of Canadians are planning to change how they shop for food in 2020. Another report released earlier in 2019 from Dalhousie and Guelph Universities found the cost of food in Canada could go up by 4% in 2020. The report cites trade wars, plastic packaging, and climate change amongst the reason for food price increases. So think about it. Trade wars, plastic packaging, and climate change. What entity is at the heart of affecting all three of those things? Government. Governments are what create trade wars. Governments are the one that dictate what kind of packaging must be used. And government is definitely behind the whole climate change initiative. So like I say, it's government, central planning, and monetary policy that's causing this kind of hardship for the majority of Canadians, in particular the working poor, or just the poor in general. And when they're talking about this 4% increases, once again, that's all averaging things out. Some things might get cheaper. Other things get a whole lot more expensive. So based on your own consumption habits or the foods you eat, that price increase might be substantially higher. In particular, some of those vegetables and meats that I was talking about. I know personally, I've seen the price go up by a whole lot more than 4%. Anyways, folks, I'll place a link to this article in the description of the video below. But once again, this is the government, the central planners of the world. These are the ones that are causing the hardships. It's not that growing vegetables or raising cattle or pigs or chicken, it's not that any of these things have become profoundly more difficult or more cost intensive. Actually, a lot of these things, based on productivity increases, innovation, and creating of modern machinery and production values much higher than at any time in the past. No, things should be getting cheaper, not more expensive. And it wasn't for the fact that your Canadian dollar is constantly having its purchasing power eroded based on central planning and monetary policy, your sources of food would be getting much cheaper and more readily available. That is what a free market would entail. But in Canada, in particular, our food sources, our grocery stores, or the agricultural industries, which are so heavily micromanaged, regulated, and dictated to by big government, yeah, that is the reason why costs of food continue to rise. If you want that to change, well, there's only really one way to make that come to fruition. And that's to get big government out of the business of dictating the economy. It requires the separation of the economy and the state. It requires that the free market actually flourish. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.